Philip, you recently returned from West Virginia where Marines were training with a little bit of a different type of battalion. Tell me about it.
Basically, the battalion's restructuring, pushing the weapons company down to the platoons. So they have anti-tank weapons, heavy machine guns, mortars. It's also implying more mature leadership to those companies so that they can act better independently.
So give us a snapshot of what an infantry battalion looks like right now. Where are the mortars? Where are the squad weapons?
Yeah, so in the Marine Corps, you pretty much have 3 line companies. Those are just mostly made up of 0311s, just standard riflemen. In addition to them, you're going to have a weapons company. That's going to have the mortars, that's going to have the anti-tank weapons, and that's going to have the heavy machine gun specialists. Marines that are trained, they're infantrymen trained specifically to use those weapons.
You mentioned maturity. What does that mean within a unit?
They're pretty much changing the command structures on the enlisted side specifically. They are making squad leaders, staff sergeants. Previously they were sergeants or even more junior. They're making platoon sergeants, gunnery sergeants. And they're making the senior enlisted advisor at the company level a master sergeant, whereas before it was a gunnery sergeant. So basically they're moving everyone down one leadership level.
So essentially, if you want the next job up, you're going to have an additional stripe needed for it than you do right now?
Yes, and that's caused some consternation amongst the infantry enlisted, especially since, when these guys were coming up, there was a shortage of infantry leaders. So a lot of the current squad leaders were squad leaders as lance corporals, platoon sergeants as corporals, or even lance corporals in some instances, and now they're going back to what they were doing, the same job they were doing about 10 years ago. At the end of the day, they kind of came around to the understanding that yes, I'm only operating a squad, but I'm still have the trust that I had as a platoon sergeant.
Did the end of our efforts in Afghanistan kind of prompt this? Are they looking somewhere new?
The Marine Corps in particular is looking at China and how to counteract and deter Chinese aggression in the South China Sea and in the Pacific. And this force kind of sees it as if we can have platoons led by gunnery sergeants or with the senior leadership of a gunnery sergeant, they can go out and they can control a small island, a small atoll in the South Pacific, and with their greater weapons from the weapons company, have greater effect on that area, protect, bring in an anti-ship missile from themselves, and then have a platoon basically blocking off a giant sea lane.
What did it look like to you in West Virginia when they were training?
It was a little bit colder in West Virginia than they were used to down in North Carolina. So there were some adjustments and some worries there, but they were eager to kind of go out and try this new concept. This is one of their first experiments where they're really getting to kind of sink down into those independent, individually operating roles and see how far they can go.
And last I checked, West Virginia is a landlocked state. Is this going to be kind of on the ground changes, or is this going to affect the way the Marine Corps fights in the ocean and amphibiously?
They were in the mountains of West Virginia. They kind of notionally made that an island, and they surrounded it by notional water. And then they were brought in on notional MV-22s that looked a lot like buses. So, in theory, they were training as if they were part of that small island operating force, as if they were operating on that small island. But the Marine Corps does claim that this will work in any battlefield.
And now that they're not focusing so much on counterinsurgency and they're, as the Marine Corps has been saying for a few years, getting back to their roots, is the way the infantry fights going to be a little bit different?
The entire Marine Corps is focused on getting that leading infantryman whatever support he needs. And that's kind of changing a little bit. Now the infantry is going to be acting in a support role for the Navy, for the rest of the Joint Force. They're going to be taking and holding lands, pinning down the opposing Navy, and allowing naval capital ships to operate wherever they want freely. And that's a bit of a role reversal for the Marine Corps infantry. They are used to kind of being the main focus, and now they're not. Again, I talked to some Marines on the ground, and they said that took a little adjusting to, but as they've continued on in this experiment, at the end of the day, they're still doing infantry stuff.
I see, and that's something that Marines have been known to do really well. Philip, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.